going to call this take 2. I had this all recorded and had the microphone turned off. So let's start all over again. We're looking at how to make ethical decisions, and I really like this graph. It kind of takes us through it as a step through, and that belongs down there. How about that? And that actually isn't that interesting. So I didn't catch that the first time. That goes there. And then that goes there. And that goes there. Okay, now I'm happy. Alrighty, now, it says, what guidelines can I follow to make sure the decisions I make are not just lawful, but ethical? Which lends to say, if it's lawful, is it always ethical? Food for thought. So this starts here, and it says, is it legal? If yes, keep going. If no, obviously stop immediately. Does it maximize shareholder value? If yes, is it ethical? If it's ethical, then do it. If no, don't do it. You may have to explain that to the stockholders, but that's okay. If it doesn't increase the value, would it be ethical? If yes, would it be ethical not to take the action? Okay, that's kind of a double negative. But if it would be okay to take the action and it would be ethical, you want to do it, but you want to tell them why you're doing that, so they understand your decision and the ethics of it. So kind of keep this in mind as you go through your managerial career. Question 3. And question 3 is, oh my goodness, true, false. If a decision is legal, is it ethical? I wonder where that came from. So let's move on to 7.5, and then how to overcome barriers to decision making. Trying to be rational isn't always easy, so there are some barriers to it. There are some ineffective reactions that people have. Managers can be relaxed. Avoidance is what it's called, and he decides to take no action in the belief that there's no great negative consequence. You always want to be on the outlook of that. You always want to be sure to investigate. Don't get so relaxed that you can avoid it and make a big mistake. There's relaxed change, and that's when it realizes the complete inaction will have negative consequences, but kind of gives only a half-hearted effort, to an alternative, and maybe it's a very low-risk alternative. Defensive avoidance, a manager can't find a good solution and follows it by procrastinating. He passes the buck to somebody else, and we've all known managers that do this, and then we've all experienced this in a panic. We become so frantic because the problem has gotten out of hand that we can't handle it. It's when we need to hand it to somebody else or walk away and calm down. 3 ways to help a manager decide whether to how to decide and evaluate what's right is to look at the importance, the credibility, and how urgent is it. If you can figure those 3 things out, you can make much better decisions. There are some biases we have to be aware of. There's the availability bias, which means managers use whatever information is there, whatever they have in their mind. They don't even consider new information. You have confirmation bias, which means we find information that supports what we want to believe without looking at the other side of it. No cons, just all pros. Representativeness, boy, try to say that one. Bias, that's simply we look at a very small sample or maybe just one event and make a decision off of that without investigating. Sunk costs means we spent so much money on it now we can't turn around, which is when you really need to turn around. Anchoring and adjustment bias, tendency to make decisions based on the first figure or the first number. Again, you need to do investigating on it. Escalation of commitment bias. Well, that's an interesting one. Increase their commitment to, it seems like once you sink your teeth into it, you can't let go. because there's that possibility of a gain, even though the reality of a loss is very real. So sometimes we get blinders. We're also going to look at fallacies, which are very similar to these. About 10 top fallacies to match these. We have question 4. Question 4 is true or false. Confirmation bias means people seek information to support their own point of view and discount data that does not support their own view. True or false? And now we look at group decision making and how to work with others. We are going to do more work with this. We'll do it with motivation, and I'll go through this rather quickly because we will spend more time on it. How do I work with others to make things happen? Using a group to make decisions has some advantages. Usually a group can make better decisions than one individual acting alone, unless it is the best individual you have acting alone, your best thinker. So a lot of times the advantages do outweigh the disadvantages depending on how you have selected your group. Cannot stress how important it is to have good chemistry in your group. So you have to have a greater pool of knowledge. You have a greater pool of knowledge with more heads and brains. You get different perspectives. You get intellectual stimulation, and maybe you can come up with new ideas. You have a better idea of the reasoning behind the decision because everybody explains what they feel. And if everybody can buy into it, you have a deeper commitment for the decision. So it will be better supported when it gets to the floor. Disadvantages are sometimes a few people may dominate and intimidate. Again, selecting members is very important. You got to be careful of groupthink, where everybody starts thinking the same and nobody wants to be kicked out of the tribe, so you end up with a one-sided decision. And then a lot of times somebody can hijack the goal. So again, it goes back to selecting the right group. Characteristics of groups to be aware of. Groups can be less efficient. They're messy. Their size affects the decision and the quality. Again, select well. They can get cocky, so they can be too confident. And then you have to make sure your group has good experts in it. Is the knowledge there to make that idea work? 3 problem-solving techniques that can be used. Brainstorming, we're all aware of that one. The Delphi technique we'll talk about more later. And computer-aided decision-making. Think the millionaires. I want to be a millionaire, and how the audience votes, and the audience is usually right. You do that with a group of experts to make decisions. So, question 5 is staring us in the face, and it's a true-false. Groups always make better decisions than most individuals acting alone. True or false? Now that covers decision making. We're going to do some assessments. We're going to talk more about how we make choices and how hard it is to make good choices when you have a lot of choices. We'll probably go through this again. So thank you for listening, and off we go.